Hey YouTube, today we are in South Windsor, Connecticut, and we were checking out it's a pretty historical town here. We are on Main Street right now. We are at the First Congregational Church on Main Street, and we are checking out this cemetery. It's a really cool cemetery that's like right here on the property. So if you guys want to come along and check that out with me. And it looks like we got some pretty old stones in here. Let's see what we have here. William Henry. I can't really read that. Maybe you guys can figure it out. I don't have my cheater glasses on, so that makes it really tough for me to... But I mean, it's actually a pretty extensive graveyard. Let's see if we can pan it up a little bit here. So we're gonna move along through here, and again, you know, a lot of what we do on this channel is exploring different areas, talking about different things, stories, situations. Today I am basically just walking around this cemetery looking for something interesting. It looks like there's a church service going on over here. Hopefully they don't come out and have a problem. Some people get uptight about the darndest things. I'm really, really interested in this stone here. This is like, you don't see stuff like this anymore. This is back when, if you had a little bit of clout, McKinney. And let's see what we got down here. Ward D. M. McKinney. Right, Ward D. McKinney, aged 87 years, died July 3rd, 1853, from injuries received while in disengage of his duties as conductor on New York, New Haven Railroad. Wow, so this poor guy, you know, he must have had something to do with the railroad, you know, constructing it. And he was killed on the job. But, you know, just think about it. Oh, was it age 37? Okay, sorry. I was going to say, if he was 87 years old working on a railroad, he had a pretty good run. But yeah, you know, that really kind of sucks, you know. Die at 37 years of age, and that's hard work, you know, back then. Figure 1853. Whew. Can't even imagine what life was like back then. You know, we take for granted all the wonderful things that we have today, you know. 1853, I mean, you know, if you had to take a dump in the middle of the night, you know, you had to get out of your bed. Well, you could probably use I think they had like a portable privy that you could use and maybe cover and dump out in the morning, you know. But other than that, you know, if the weather was real bad, or I would imagine if you were suffering some kind of an illness, that would probably be the smartest way to go about it. But, you know, other than that, you would have to get up, go out to the outhouse, you know, do your duty. And, you know, forget about toilet paper, you know. So my father, he's 90 years old. He'll be 90 years old this September. And my mother just turned 90 about a week and a half ago. So they grew up, you know, during the Depression and right after it. And they tell me stories about, what life was like back then. And there's been many times, like my father would say, yeah, toilet paper. He goes, we never had toilet paper. He says, we had a Sears and Roebuck catalog, and we would just leave that in the outhouse. And, if you needed to go and you needed to wipe yourself, that is what you would use. And, and I apologize for my camera work here, and it is getting dark. I'm not on an expensive device. I'm actually using my wife's cell phone, because it's better quality than mine. And I am basically just filming this graveyard and talking about things and reading a random grave here and there when I can. A lot of these are so old they're almost not even readable. This looks like, James M. Newberry, and he died April 19th, 1876, aged 60 years, which was pretty good, for back in them days, Figure, food was hard, food was hard to get, nutrition was probably not always, key for most people with diet, and the work was probably hard. Just, the whole lifestyle was not as cushy. However, though, as my father said, when you stop moving, that's kind of when you're done, That is why, we do these things. Both my wife and I are disabled, and at this point, and she's suffering, she's battling stage 3 ovarian cancer, and she just had a rough ride. As I've talked about in a previous video, 6 rounds of chemo and having all of her major woman organs taken out. It's, she's in remission at the moment, but it's a constant trip to the doctors and tests and scans, and she's in a lot of pain, and I try to get her out when I can, just to get her out of 4 walls and out into some air, and if anything, get her spirits up. It's good for your head and your soul to see different things, and I'm a firm believer that nature and the outside is one of the best things. See if we can straighten that out. It's broken, but... And apparently this land, it says on the plaque in town that it was bought from the Podunk Indians way back in the 1700s. So this was all their land back in the day. And they would, they farmed this area. They had a, village here. I mean, this was their land, and, it's a funny thing when they say that it was, that they bought it from the natives, because we all know that, they probably gave them a couple of beaver pelts and maybe some guns and some tobacco or something, and they talked them into signing some agreement of, basically giving up their land or their area that, and it really wasn't, more or less they kind of came in, took over, and kicked them out. So you could pretty much say they stole it, in some ways. I mean, I've got a lot of Native American in me, the Iroquois tribe, and, my whole family's, got lineage in that sort of thing. So, However, it just seems to be the way of the human race and the world. If you really think about it, stop and think about people that get all knotted up over all this stuff. I mean, it always seems like it's just like, I don't even know how to put it into words, but I mean, if it wasn't the English that came over here and dominated the natives, it would have been somebody else eventually, or vice versa, or, you know, the natives would have overtaken other lands. I mean, there's always been this thing with human beings from the beginning of time of greed and power and kind of the survival of the fittest. You see it in the animal kingdom. You know, it's surprising, though. If you've ever watched animals long enough in the wild, they actually seem to have somewhat of an understanding between each other, as well as, you know, like humans can sometimes, you know, as I said, it's hard to put into words, you know, the things that I think about or things that I've seen, you know. But it seems like with humans, it always quickly goes to greed and domination fast. And, you know, then they put laws in place to try and govern, you know, government and stuff like that to try to, you know, maintain some sort of order. But there's always a fight with that, too. There's always a constant tug of war, you know, between good, evil, and, you know, just people that want to dominate, take over. But anyways, enough of that. As I said, this channel is all about stuff off the cuff, stories, adventures, situations, places, and you never know what you're going to get, but you'll definitely get some good scenery. Today we got out a little bit late. We had to get some shopping done and take care of just regular. And look at this building here. I don't know if that was the pastor's house for the church back in the day, but it's just a really neat area. Whole lot of nostalgia, historic stuff. It's just cool. And if you guys like what you see, please, you know, hit a like, subscribe. It really helps out on the channel. I don't know. My wife manages most of the clerical stuff of this channel, so I don't know how far she's gotten with any kind of donations or Patreons or anything like that, but I'm sure that we will have perks like that in the future. But as of now, yeah, give a like, you know, subscribe if you like what you see. You know, we ain't claiming to, you know, be any different than anybody else on YouTube. Maybe we are different, I don't know, but we're not claiming to be anything special, flamboyant. It's just all stuff off the cuff for people that maybe can't do these sort of things, or just, you know, want to watch something or hear a story or whatever. Alrighty. Till next time. See you later.